This is my old desktop computer. It's an emachines T5048. It's like from like 2006 or 7. It came with Windows XP, and they included a free upgrade to Vista. Kind of gives you an idea how old it is. So here not long ago, it shut off on me, and when I turned it back on, a message popped up that said that the CPU had overheated, and when the temperature came up, it automatically shut down to protect the CPU. So as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, maybe I should just turn it off again because CPU is going to get hot. And I thought, well, I'll look at it and see what's going on. So I pulled the cover off and fired it up, and the CPU fan here, I heard it kind of whine a little bit, and then after 5 or 10 seconds it started turning and ended up going. And I noticed it had some dust bunnies and stuff starting to build up in it, so I blew those out with one of those little cans of air you can buy in the electronics store or Walmart or whatever. And when I went and turned it on again, the thing wouldn't power up. It just like it was dead. And I thought, well, what did I do? Did I spark something or what? And I borrowed a power supply tester, and power supply was fine. This was like a week later because it took a little bit before I found one. And I thought, well, that's strange. So I plugged it in, it fired up. The computer started this time, but I noticed that the fan didn't start turning. So I ordered a new CPU fan. Okay, so I get my new CPU fan. This is the old one. This is the new one. And at first sight, well, it looks like the same thing. It's just a fan. When I go and take it off, this new one has this little thing here, which I don't know exactly what the idea is. It's shaped like a CPU, basically, because mine was rectangular. See, the bottom of them's different. My old one here has the actual square that was sitting right on the CPU. This one here just has a small circle, and if I used it with this piece, it wouldn't even be touching it. And if you notice, the screws on the new one, it's the one on the left, are a little bit longer, these mounting screws. So I thought if I tried to use this without that, this might not even touch it. So I thought, okay, I'll just have to remove this heat sink from this one and put the old heat sink on the new fan, because that's the real issue, is I need a new fan. Then I started thinking, well, wait a minute, is it really the same? And I looked at the connector and I'm like, wait a minute, this one here is only 3 wires. It's got I'll zoom in on it. But the old one has 4 wires. It has a red, a yellow, a blue, and a black. And the new one only has the black and the red and the yellow, so it's missing the blue wire. So at first I thought, well, wait, they just plain sent me the whole wrong thing. And I got online, and supposedly, at least according to a website, you can be alright, but what will happen is the one with 3 wires will run all the time, while the one with 4 wires would shut down and, run whenever the temperature came up, and maybe even run at different speeds depending on the temperature. So I decided to give it a try, and I'm going to see if I can pull the old heat sink off and put it on the new fan. Okay, these little rings here are like lock washers, snap washers, whatever, snap washers, something like that. I don't know their actual name. And they were on the ends of each screw. I don't know if you can see it, there's a little groove right around in there. And the washer, so the screw, we'll back off a little here. screw goes through here with the fan on top. Obviously I've got it, and they put this, one of those little washers down here just to keep the screw from flying out. So I had to butcher those little washers. I pulled them off with a pair of pliers, but I made sure I didn't tear up the fan or the heat sink. And also, while I'm mentioning it, I tried just to see what had happened if I went ahead and put on the new fan with the heat sink that came with it. And because the screw that comes with it is considerably longer, it wouldn't even touch the CPU. So I'm like 99% sure it was just going to overheat if I had went ahead and used it, because you're supposed to have contact and you're supposed to use a little dab of grease. They sent me this tiny little thing, looks like a pack of salt. It's got a little bit of grease, and from what I understand from people I've talked to, you're supposed to put a very, very small amount of grease on there that will be right on here on the heatsink, and it's also going to be right on top of the CPU itself. So see right here, this little square, that's the CPU with the fan off. So when I have it on there, this part here, you can see that it's the same shape. This is from the old heatsink. When it sat down on here, it was actually in contact with the CPU, and it had just a tiniest little dab of grease on there, because you don't want to put too much grease on, because you don't want that junk to ooze out all over your motherboard and everything. So it's a very small amount of grease. And I've also been advised that I can clean this off with a little bit of like rubbing alcohol on a cotton ball to get the old buildup, because you can see that's kind of just a little filmy looking there. So I'll try to clean it up a little before I put them on. Okay, gives you an idea of the gunk that came off, and there was little balls of it too, a little ball of dried up, burnt up grease there. So it cleaned it up pretty good. I did the same thing to the CPU down there, and I want to make sure it's dry before I do it, because some of that rubbing alcohol was, you know, kind of running off down below there, and it should evaporate quick, but I'm going to make sure. Okay, since I'm using my old heat sink here, I want to make sure that there's no dirt and gunk in between the fins here. It looks pretty clean right now, but I'd blown it out with one of them cans of compressed air. I'm going to do it again. I think I see a little something in there. I'm going to try the same thing here on the CPU in case there's any dirt left, and also kind of making sure that alcohol completely dried up. Okay, so I've got the new fan on my old heatsink, and I used the original screws. And since I butchered those little tabs that would hold this on here, these are just sitting in here, so I got to be careful, just, you know, not to have them fall out. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put a hopefully very small amount of grease on. This was, they included this little packet with the CPU, which they charged me an extra $1.99, so I guess that's expensive grease, but hopefully it's supposed to be specifically for this. There are a lot of kinds of grease out there. So I'm going to try to put just a really small amount. It's white grease, it might be lithium. Okay. Yeah, you can see there I put just a little dab. That was what came out when I just barely squeezed this. I'm sure you don't want to put the whole packet on. If you put too much, it's going to ooze all over. At least that's what I've been told by other people. So I'm going to go with a small amount. Okay, I've just got it resting on here. I'll see if I can get these screws in. Okay, I had to move the camera out of the way to get it going so I could get in front of there. But when you do these, there's a spring on each screw. Here you can see, I think. And so you got to press down with the screwdriver fairly hard and get the screw to go down, because when you put this on here, the heat sink part is actually setting on the CPU. So it's like it wants to rock just a little, and then you press down and you'll feel the heat sink kind of go a little sideways, and you get that one to just screw it in just enough to get it to grab. And you do the same thing as you go around. So now I've got all four of them just in there a little bit. And I'm just gonna make little small moves here, going all the way around till it snugs up. That one seems tight. Yeah, when it gets all the way down, the screw just kind of wants to stop, so you don't need to force it. You don't want to strip it out. These are small screws anyway. So that seems to be all in there. So now all I got to do, got to remember plug it in. Find my little wire here, and I'll see if I can get a close-up of my 4-prong connector. And as you can see, this one here is a 3. There's only 3 wires on it. And the connector on the motherboard, which is over here and says CPU fan next to it, by the way, is for 4. But there's little notches on here on this connector, which is hard to see right now. Okay, you can just kind of see this. There's 4 pins sticking up on that white connector. It's hard to zoom in close enough and still get it in focus. And there's a little white tab sticking up, and that's where that connector is going to hit. So I'm going to be plugging into the 3 pins on the side. Okay, so I've got that connected, and I've just plugged it into power. It wasn't plugged in the rest of the time, but I've been touching the metal sides here to try to reduce static so that I didn't spark it. So we'll power it on, see if it starts up, and see if the fan runs. I like that. Fan came on right away. So hopefully we have success.